Good morning, everybody. This is Football Talk and our normally scheduled Tuesday morning of Between the Lines. Unfortunately, our guest today had some tech issues, and so we're going to have to reschedule that for a different time. But I am going to go ahead and answer some questions that I've gotten, obviously, about football and, of course, some of it about the setup that I use when I'm recording. I get a lot of those questions, and so I might as well take some time and explain some of the things that I have here. So starting off with the setup, obviously the camera is fixed, so I won't be able to pan around and show you, but if you reach out to me on Twitter, I can send you pictures of excuse me, I send you some pictures of the things that I have, but basically I am using a soundboard. It's the Rodecaster Pro. I think you can pick it up on Amazon. It's roughly like $450, $500, something like that. And that's probably the more expensive thing that is in my setup currently. The other thing that I have, obviously, there's lighting. And so I have some freestanding lighting. I have two to my left and two to my right. And those are GMV, also available on Amazon. They are color changing. So not only can you adjust the brightness and the warmness of the white, but there's an app for your phone and you can actually change the colors completely. There's different light settings, so you could have flashing, strobe, whatever. So not necessarily only used for this. Like if I'm doing some product photography, stuff like that, I can adjust the lighting in a way that really makes it pop. And so it's multi-purpose lighting, but I do use it for the podcast to try and get some even lighting. And fortunately, as I continue to lose some hair here, it doesn't make my head shiny. So, small victories, right? And then over at the camera, I have a pretty versatile tripod that it sits on. It actually even has the ability to mount the camera underneath. So if you're shooting random other things, it's a cool tripod. I forget the brand of it offhand, but again, if you were curious, I can send you a link to it. What I'm shooting on is the Canon XA45. So it's a pretty nice camera. It's also great if you're going to do anything that is out of the studio, right? So if you are going to do an interview and you're going to be on site, it actually has the ability for XLR mics to plug into it. So you can be mic'd up directly to your camera, which is pretty awesome. Tons of zoom options. There's actually different lens options you can get for it. So you can shoot in numerous different ways, but it also is small. So it's not like a huge video, TV camera style, which, obviously is nice when you're trying to bring that stuff around. So yeah, the XA45, obviously there's newer versions of it now. I've had this camera for a couple of years, but it works great. I have the Griffin lighting rack, and I have some lighting on that as well. Again, just trying to get some even lighting in the room. It's always kind of a bummer if you're watching and it's real dark, hard to see what's going on. So it's nice to have as many lighting options to help kind of balance things out. Also, when I'm setting up a room, I try to make sure that there's not any real light behind me, because that can adjust what your camera picks up, and it can really darken everything in front of you. And since I have a screen behind me, I'm already battling some backlighting that I have to offset from lights in front of me. So that's why I end up with so much light in the room. Again, only because I have a screen behind me. If I were to offset the screen so it wasn't such a focal point in the camera, obviously lighting needs would change quite a bit. But yeah, so that's why I have some of those things around. do you need all of that stuff? No, absolutely not. And of course, mic wise, there's tons of different mics you can use. If you're going straight to your laptop, they have some great just USB mics that go straight to that. I chose mine because the Rodecaster Pro has 4 XLR mics, so I can have 4 of these at one time. I can also have a phone Bluetoothed into it and a phone tethered to it. So you can have as many as 6 guests mic'd up on this at one time, where if you're doing it directly through your laptop, sometimes you are limited as far as in-studio guests. And so, it's definitely one of those things where you kind of have to figure out the way it is you want to go. The other thing that's nice about the Rodecaster Pro is you can record the audio track while you are, going through it into your laptop. So you could be recording your video, onto YouTube or Spotify video or whatever platform you are recording into. If you're live, or if you're recording directly to your laptop to adjust later, you don't necessarily have to have software to strip that audio. You could be recording that audio directly with the Rodecaster Pro, which is awesome. So that's why I went that route. It's a great tool, but you don't necessarily have to spend tons of money. Believe it or not, I got these BM800 mics that sound pretty good. Obviously, if you're really close to it, like you would be with any mic, it would pick up a hard S, something like that. But yeah, the BM800, you can get it on Amazon. I actually got it off Wish, believe it or not. And so it was actually a really cheap pickup. These are just standard boom mics, also really cheap on Amazon or anything like that. But yeah, so that's kind of my basic setup. My backdrops, obviously, I just design those because I'm a little bit artsy that way. But yeah, so that's just sort of some basic setup that I have. But again, I got some of these things specifically for the ability to be able to take it on the road, so to speak. So like if I were going to go and to location and record with somebody, I wouldn't want to be bringing the soundboard and all of that, but you would be bringing your laptop and the camera. And since the camera accepts XLR mics and has the ability to provide phantom power, and if you don't know what that is, do some mic research. There's really there's 3 different kinds of mics, and you kind of have to pick what it is, makes sense for you. Mine require it, not all of them do. And but again, it's the difference between compressor mics. And so again, that's a TED talk for a different day. But you definitely got to pick your mic. They also, when you're picking a mic, you have to kind of figure out how loud your room is going to be, because some of them are far more susceptible to pick up background noise than others. Some of them are a lot more adjustable. Obviously, if you're using your kind of basic USB mic that's going to plug into your computer, there is far less adjustments. But again, some of that just has to do with price point and how much gear you want to buy starting out. But yeah, so that's just kind of a short overview of more or less the layout that I have. These are pretty just basic headphones. I just like the feel of a full headphone as opposed to just an earbud or something like that. Is it necessary? No. Like you could absolutely have a plug-in Bluetooth XLR headphone, and that would be fine. But I choose not to. I like a little bit of the noise canceling ability, and that way I can really kind of focus in on how the show sounds as opposed to kind of hearing it twice with exterior noise. So that's why I go with a full-size headphone. Again, totally not necessary. You can get noise canceling earbuds. Obviously I use them if I'm going to go play sports or whatever. But yeah, just a personal preference thing. And then, might as well talk about a little bit about football here. You got Derek Carr signing with New Orleans. obviously that's a good pickup for them. That division is terrible. So obviously we haven't gone into free agency really, and it doesn't start for a week, I think. And then, you have the draft as well. But as it sits right now, that has to make the Saints the front runner in that division. Granted, not a great division, but it makes sense why he would have wanted to go there as opposed to a couple of the other places that he also would have been a pretty solid fit for, but were far more difficult divisions. So if he's looking for an easier path to get to the playoffs, that was a really smart move. Geno obviously getting picked up by Seattle. That is like it's good because it's a 3-year with an opt-out after the second year. So it's really a 2-year contract. So you can kind of still feel out what it is he's going to do. If this last year was kind of an aberration outlier, right? Because we haven't seen necessarily anything that makes you think that he was that guy. But he got to sit behind some amazing talent. So you have to assume that he did, come along, along the way here, right? So, but the contract is a 3-year, $105 million, and so it's going to average 35. Which, at the end of the day, if they would have franchise tagged him, that would have been 32 anyway. And then if they would have franchise tagged him a second year, which is essentially all the longer this contract really is going to be, unless he balls out and they, continue on with that third year. But with that second year franchise tag, he's essentially making the same money anyway. So it made sense to do what they did, especially having that fifth overall pick, which I thought, a little bit earlier towards right at the end of the year, I thought they would probably do what the Seahawks almost always do with a first round pick, is trade back, get some extra picks, and then, build that way. But they are usually picking in the 20s, which a lot of the top talent is already gone. And in this particular case, picking at 5, there's still some pretty viable options at quarterback that they could pick up, that now that they have their guy that they can learn behind, you can pick up a Levis or an AR or something like that. And they get to have that year, maybe 2 with the clipboard to kind of learn and sort of come into the speed of the NFL. And so I think that, they may still pick up a quarterback in that first pick, which, again, as we were approaching the end of the year, I really didn't think that was going to be the way it went down. But the more I think about it and the way that this quarterback class has been, it's, the first 2 guys are pretty much ready to go. Like, there's going to be a learning curve for sure, but they're going to have success right out of the gate. And then the next, probably 6 or 7 guys off the board, or, quarterbacks off the board, I should say, they are not polished guys. Like, there's elements of their game that need to come together. And I think most of those guys would be better off to sit behind a veteran for a year, really come into their own as far as, moving into the NFL, especially the speed of the game. But so that's kind of the way that I look at it. They may very well still take a quarterback. And then that 20th pick, I think they absolutely pick, so either D-line or, defensive edge, something in there, just because of how bad that offensive line or that defensive line was, especially against the run, and anything that was kind of a slant or cross or anything like that. I mean, they got gashed all year. So I have to assume they're going to do everything they can to kind of shore those things up. The only way I could see them trading back from 5 is if they were deciding not to go the quarterback route, or they were going to go for a late, kind of late round quarterback. So like a second or a third round, maybe the kid out of Tennessee, something like that. And then they may trade back a few spots and load up, to pick up as much defensive line and interior offensive line talent as they can. But so that's going to be fun to watch. Usually I kind of have a pretty good idea what the Seahawks are going to do. And in this particular case, I'm really kind of going back and forth, especially after John Schneider talked about not being in a position to pick this high. So he kind of alluded to the fact that they would use that pick. And will they do it? I mean, possibly. Could it be gamesmanship where he's trying to get people to offer more for that potential pick because they think maybe they won't trade out this time? That could absolutely be the case too. So it's really a pick this year that I'm not sure what they're going to do. I was pretty sure halfway through the year that it was going to be some sort of either defensive line or linebacking core additions with, trading back and then grabbing that. But as we've gotten past the end of the year and we're starting to, see players move around, I think they may actually go ahead and use that pick. So, yeah, that's kind of the way I'm leaning on that. For those of you just joining us, I see a couple of people pop in. Our guest this week had some technical issues, so we're going to try and get her rescheduled for a different Tuesday this, coming up. But, I'm going to go, I get asked quite often, because I'm a Hawks fan, if I think Jody Allen's going to sell the team soon. And I don't think she does. I'm pretty sure she's probably going to hold on until the next coaching staff comes in. I think, I don't know that you're going to see Pete Carroll re-sign after 25. I don't know that Schneider will stick around after 25. He did express interest in, some other teams when his last contract came up. So I don't think that those guys are going to be re-signing. So I think that she remains the owner through the next coaching, coaching group. Same with the GM. And I think that's, for no other reason, I think that just adds some value to the team to be purchasing a team that isn't now in a turnover, type situation. I think when you're buying something, you want to be able to make those changes on your own, but you want something solid in place when you get it. So I mean, when you see companies get taken over or bought, or, however you want to look at it, a lot of times the management staff ends up getting axed, but they usually run for a while with the one that they have. And, that way they can see what they like, what they don't, anything that they want to implement. And it'll probably be a similar situation where they'll bring in a new GM and a new coaching staff. And then that's probably when Jody would end up selling it. And that new ownership group could come in, kind of assess where they're at, if they happen to like the coaching staff or, the dynamic of where the team is. And then they can, obviously pivot from there, whether they keep it on or they, move on from them. And of course, it's the NFL, so they're not afraid of wasting hundreds of millions of dollars in coaching contracts. At the beginning of this last season, there was $880 million of coaches getting paid for jobs they were no longer in. So they're not afraid to let someone go and just pay out their contracts, for sure. So, but anyway, that's going to wrap us up for today. Again, sorry we had a little bit of technical issues this morning, but we will be back next week. Subscribe. We have a great guest next week. Is a friend of mine who is a professional photographer at the games. He has done Seahawks, Sounders, Mariners, Kraken, and he this last week recently just did the brand new XFL Sea Dragons. So it's going to be great to talk to him, talk about how it is, what the different leagues are like working with them. And then he's also a great landscape photographer. So again, that'll be next Tuesday. And other than that, we will see you next week. Have a good one, guys.